Welcome to We're Talking Millions, Potential Customers and Profits. My name is Scott Tuttle. I am the founder and president of Live and Light Recreational Vehicles. We're the manufacturers of ultra-lightweight automotive campers, travel trailers, truck campers, and toy haulers. And I'd like to say thank you for watching this presentation. This presentation actually was originally given at the RVDA show in Las Vegas in October. And I got enough feedback that said, we need to document this so that we can share it with other dealers. So thank you for watching. Now, some RV industry traditionalists would question what I have to share with you today, but that's nothing new for me. In fact, on the contrary, it's something that I'm used to. Why? Because I've never been one to really be afraid to question conventional wisdom, especially in the RV industry. I've always been the type that would say, hey, wait a minute, why don't we try this? Or why don't we do that? And because of that, it's led Living Light to some really interesting propositions. I want you to look at some numbers. Statistics show us that our industry will entertain approximately 2.5 to 3 million potentially serious RV buyers every year. And out of these potential buyers, our industry will sell to approximately 250,000 of them. Now, 250,000 sounds like a big number, but the statistics that I'm going to show you today and the information I'm going to share with you is going to make you rethink whether or not that's really a big number, especially when you consider how many people that we could be introducing to your dealership. Now, out of these 250,000 sales, over 90% of them are towables. So as an industry, we sell approximately 250,000 RVs every year, and the vast majority of these are towables that by definition require a tow vehicle to pull. Towables dominate. Whether they're luxury fifth wheels, travel trailers, bunkhouses, toy haulers, it doesn't matter. They make up the vast majority of what we do in this industry. Again, over 92%. And what do the vast majority of these towables have in common? Another way to say this is, what basket are dealers putting basically 99% of their eggs into? Well, that is units that require a truck or an SUV to pull them. Trucks and SUVs. The lifeblood of our industry. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it's not. It's a good thing. But today, I'm sharing information, and I'm going to ask those of you who have chosen to watch this presentation to consider for a moment, when you see this picture, what is missing? Cars. What about all those cars out there? What about the crossover vehicles, the fastest growing segment in the automotive industry over the last 5 years? What about the American Classic, the minivan that so many families are driving every year? Did you ever wonder what percentage of people drive these types of vehicles versus the percentage of people driving the trucks and SUVs that our industry is so dependent on? Look at this chart. This is last month's top 20 vehicles sold in the United States. Good news is the number 1 and 2 spots are filled by the Ford F-150 truck and the Chevy Silverado truck. That's great news for RV dealers, again, because we carry 99% of our towables that require a truck or SUV to pull them. But look a little bit closer at this chart. And what do we see? 17 of the top 20 vehicles sold are either cars, crossover vehicles, or minivans. Look at this. The Camry, the Accord, the Escape, Cruise, Altima, Honda Civic. The list just goes on. And look at the numbers of them that were sold. They're really not that far behind the truck series, but when you add them all up, we're talking there's nearly 4 million vehicles sold already year to date. And out of those, cars, crossovers, and minivans represent nearly 78% of all vehicles sold. Now, you got to stop for a minute here and realize what this means to our industry, because we're putting all our money on the 22% of consumers who'll be purchasing trucks and SUVs. Now, when I was doing that seminar in Vegas, I used this analogy. That's like taking all the money that you've ever made in your life and going to the roulette table and betting everything you had on just 8 numbers and leaving the other 28 numbers uncovered. Now, nobody would call that a good bet, especially not over and over again, but that's what we're doing when the only towable vehicles that we carry on our lots must be towed by a truck or an SUV. Are you starting to see where I'm going with this conversation? Our industry focuses the vast majority of our attention and our efforts on the sales to those who own trucks and SUVs. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. it's working out pretty good because obviously, fifth wheels are doing well, but we're not here because of a good idea. We're here because we want to be great. And I'm here to tell you that great doesn't happen if you're leaving 78% of potential customers out. It doesn't work that way. Now, why should these 78% of vehicles mean anything to us? I mean, they are smaller, fuel-efficient vehicles. They are cars, crossovers, and minivans. They're not trucks and SUVs. Well, I'll tell you why they mean something to me. Because they can tow. And I don't know about you, but if they can tow, I'm interested in selling them a camper. Why should this also interest you? Because all of the other dealers in our industry are fighting for the same customers, those truck and SUV owners. And when you break it down, they're a lot of times fighting against people in their own region that are carrying very similar products. If you think about it, a lot of dealers are handcuffed by the fact that you're selling the same basic product at the same basic price as the guy down the street. And if you go a little deeper, a good number of those similar models are being made by the same manufacturer running down the same production line, just with different graphics. You think I'm kidding? Well, look at the stat surveys. Out of the top 45 travel trailers sold, 19 are made by Thor, 12 are made by Forest River, 5 are made by Jayco. That means 36 of the top 45 are made by just 3 manufacturers. What about fifth wheels? Well, of the top 45 fifth wheels sold, 21 are Thor products, 15 are made by Forest River. That means that 35 of the top 45 are made by just 2 manufacturers. Now, whether you're lucky enough to carry some of these lines or unlucky enough if you feel that way, the reality is the ability to maximize your profits is hindered by tremendous ingrown competition. I mean, let's review these numbers again. 250,000 potential customers, sales of which are dominated by 2, maybe 3 manufacturers, some of which have saturated the market with sister products, which allows them to have as many as 3 or 4 dealers in the same region selling essentially the same products. And most of you know how tough it is to make a good profit when the customer can go right down the street and find essentially the same vehicle at essentially the same price. So I ask, where are the profits? Just read the stock reports. You'll see them very quickly. The big manufacturers, the big Goliath companies are making hundreds of millions of dollars, and you can see why. When you've limited the number of customers that you're competing for by only building products that can be towed by trucks and SUVs, and the system is set up where you have to compete with your own manufacturer in your own region, sometimes in your own city, how in the world can you be expected to make a decent profit? It's simple, you can't. So what are you supposed to do? Well, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I'm going to tell you that one of the first things you need to think about doing is diversifying. It's time to diversify. Go after customers that no one else is going after with products that no one else has. That's what my company, Live and Light, is all about. Helping dealers go after customers that no one else is going after by providing them with products that no one else has. You need to get some new products on your lot that you don't have to compete with other dealers for. That immediately improves your profit margins. But I want to take it one step further. I want to take something that I think is a great idea, and I want to turn it into possibly a watershed moment in the history of your dealership type of idea. How do you do that? Well, you have to mentally get past fighting for the scraps when it comes to the same 250,000 potential customers that every RV dealer in America is fighting for. And yes, with the internet, that's about what you have going on. You know it and I know it. People from Washington are shopping in Florida, and people from Texas are shopping in California, and it's tough to make money. And a lot of these folks, they're on their 5th or their 6th RV. They drive a big truck. Maybe they've owned 3 different big fifth wheels in the last 5 years. I'm not saying forget about them. I'm not saying leave them behind. I'm just saying that you will always have to fight with a number of other RV dealers to get their business. But there's a potential of business out there for you that's so much bigger than that. Let's talk about the millions of potential customers that your dealership could be targeting that no one else in your region is. Let's tap into a demographic that is so big that it outsizes those 250,000 normal RV buyers by about 150 to 1. Is there such a market? You better believe there is. And guess what? They already love to camp. The Outdoor Association reports annually on the number of people who take their families camping in tents. Can you guess how many people went tent camping last year? Whether it was in campgrounds, our national parks, in local parks, in the wilderness, even in their backyard? 44 million. I'm going to say that again. 44 million people went tent camping last year. They packed up their smaller, fuel-efficient cars, their crossover vehicles, their minivans, and yes, probably some trucks, and they headed out into the great outdoors with their families to enjoy nature and spend some quality time with their family. And honestly, isn't that the roots of what our industry started? It's about families getting out in the outdoors and enjoying time together. They didn't care so much about big screen TVs and four-door refrigerators. They just wanted to get out there and have good time together and enjoy the outdoors. Now look at where our industry's gone since then. We've run down this path of bigger is better, more is better. But you know what? That is not the case with the demographics as I see them. There are a group of 44 million tent campers that really interest me. And I think by the end of this presentation, they're going to interest you as well. Now, I'm a reader, and sometimes I end up reading stuff that most people could care less about. But it helps me understand my business and the demographics that I'm going after. And one of the things that I've read a couple times now, the last few that have been out, is the census. Yep, I've read the last 2 census. And, that's pretty boring reading. But you know what it showed me? Some really valuable information, such as this, Generation Y. Now, if you don't know what Generation Y is, there's baby boomers, then there's Generation X, and then there's Generation Y. And they're generally 24 to 45 years old. These are the young families that are having kids right now. But they reported that they want to spend more time with their children than their parents spent with them. That was a big thing that they wanted to report back to the Census Bureau. It turns out that the baby boomers had set the bar so high for their children, which were the Gen Xers, that the Gen Xers spent many of their lifetimes working hard to kind of prove themselves to their parents. And they worked so hard through life, many times they left their children behind. Their children kind of paid the price. So this next generation is saying, you know what? I'm not going to do that to my kids. I love my kids, and I'm going to spend more time with them than my parents spent with me. Now that was, that's a neat story. That's a neat human interest story, but there's more to it than that. Because they backed up those statements with this. And to me, this is an incredible fact. They said that they would be willing to take a lesser paying job in order to spend more quality time with their children. I mean, that's amazing. Willing to take a lesser paying job in order to spend more quality time with their children. It's true. It's what they said. That's how important it is to them. And again, it's a great human interest story, but what does that mean to you and I in the RV business? Well, let's keep looking at the stats. Another thing this group reported in the census was that they are 5 to 6 times more likely to drive a smaller, fuel-efficient vehicle than a truck or an SUV. Now, you start to add all these things up, and the fact that camping is a great lifestyle for young families to go out and enjoy quality time together, and you start to see that, this may be putting together a potential mix where I could maybe sell them a camper. Now, what about the economy, though? A lot of people think that camper sales are so based on the economy. Well, what about, I don't think so much in this demographic, because as I read, I find that through the recession and the prolonged recovery, I keep finding great headlines that promote camping. Here's one right here. Camping becomes more popular during the recession. National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds reports that many of their largest campgrounds had increased visitors during the recession, particularly among those camping in tents. That's great news. KOA sees increased activity during economic slowdown. KOA with over 430 locations, what do they report? More visitors and higher revenues since the economic slowdown. CNN recently had a report, said this, during the economic slump, camping comes into vogue. Both tent sales and campground reservations show that more and more families are deciding that urban vacations are too expensive and are instead turning to camping as a more affordable solution for weekends and vacations. With the economy in a slump, camping seems to be grabbing a new foothold in the travel industry. Sleeping outside has become chic, likely because it is so much cheaper than paying for a hotel room. The activity also strikes a chord with Americans who want to get back to the basics after an era of excess and overspending. I love these types of articles coming out. Other headlines have caught my eye coming out of Detroit. Now, why would Detroit catch my eye? Because there's a shift going on in the automotive industry that we need to pay attention to. Here's an article that was in USA Today. RV Business picked it up. Automakers are phasing out V8 engine production. The quarterback of engines, the legendary V8, is starting to have a hard time making the cut. Most automakers introducing new V8s are combining them to trailer towing trucks, which is great, and retreating from putting them under the hoods of family cars. And again, 78% of the people are buying family cars, not trucks. Unfortunately, it says you look at the V8 and say, do I really need it? Says auto consultant Rebecca Lindland of Global Insight. You get a real nice feeling from a V6 or even a turbocharged V6. Down on the bottom here, even V6 engines have lost their popularity as more buyers are opting for four-cylinder economy. It's about fuel economy these days. Here's an article. Ford imports foreign cars for U.S. buyers. And if you see here where it's highlighted in blue, in North America, where Ford is losing billions on its truck-heavy lineup. In response to truck sales going down and fuel-efficient car sales going up, they had to actually import smaller cars from Europe because they are quickly trying to morph from a truck company into a car company, but it takes time to retool U.S. plants. And I'm here to tell you today that they have retooled a number of those U.S. plants so that they're no longer making as many trucks, but they're making many more fuel-efficient cars, including the crossovers and minivans. Next article I want to show you. The Civic outsells the Ford F-Series trucks for the first time. Entire history books could one day be devoted to the auto industry's seismic shift. Yet the May sales numbers tell the whole story. The Honda Civic, a compact car available with either a hybrid or gas engine, displaced Ford's F-Series pickup truck as the month's best-selling vehicle. Now look at this. Second part that's highlighted in blue. A passenger sedan, not a truck, was the top-selling vehicle in the United States for the first time in 16 years. 16 years. That's how long the truck was the #1 selling vehicle in the United States. GM shutting down 4 truck and SUV facilities. I mean, this is big news. You know, we don't talk much about it in the RV industry, but I'm here today to tell you we need to pay attention to this stuff. The CEO of GM, Rick Wagner, said before the automaker's annual meeting in Delaware that the plans to be closed included, etc., etc., etc. Look down at the third paragraph down, fourth paragraph. Wagner announced the moves in response to slumping sales of pickups and SUVs brought on by higher oil prices. He said the change in the U.S. market to smaller vehicles likely is permanent. We at GM don't think this is a spike or temporary shift, Wagner said. That is big news when you have an industry such as ours dedicated to producing towables that need a truck or an SUV to pull. What about Ford? Ford CEO says shift to smaller cars here to stay. In red, that shift to small and medium-sized cars and utilities is going to be permanent. This is amazing news that we really need to pay attention to in the RV industry, folks. I'm telling you, there is a shift coming, and we are either going to be ahead of it or we're going to be behind it. And at Living Light, we're doing everything we can to help you be ahead of it. Next article. In a historic first, Detroit automakers dip below imports in the U.S. market. Detroit is reporting here that foreign imports have been coming in the United States at such a rate that the Detroit 3 are going to have to respond to it. And if you look down here at the bottom, they have their work cut out from them. The big 3 are going to have to figure out how to be competitive outside of pickup trucks. Wow. Look at that. The big 3 are going to have to figure out how to be competitive outside of pickup trucks. And if that's the case, doesn't that also mean that RV dealers are going to have to figure out a way how to be competitive outside of pickup trucks as well? Obviously. Amazing statement here. Look at this article from USA Today that documented a seminal moment in the U.S. automaker history. And this was, again, the first time that small cars replaced the Ford F1 series as the top sellers. Epitomizing the changing of the guard, a passenger car unseated the pickup as the best-selling U.S. vehicle in monthly sales. Next article from USA Today. Drivers choose cars over trucks. It's a watershed moment, a sign of the times. If you look at the last sentence down there, now automakers believe the pickup, at least, will trend back to its roots as the humble working partner of cowboys and contractors. And I would add to that, and people pulling fifth wheels, okay? They're still going to be out there. The automotive industry is still going to make some trucks so that we can sell fifth wheels, but the vast majority of the industry in the automotive industry is shifting to smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. But the good news is, in spite of all this shift from trucks and SUVs to smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles, I'm here to tell you that things look very bright for our industry, because the fact is, people still love to go camping. Look at this article here. Families continue to go camping. High gasoline prices and an unusually cool and wet June have done an economic uppercut to northern Michigan campgrounds, yet as many states and private parks in Southeast Peninsula are enjoying a banner year. We are seeing a considerable increase in the number of campers in the Southeast. We're seeing more people camping in tents. In fact, listen to this paragraph down here. The sour mood of some larger RV owners who are paying more in gas are not shared by those with smaller campers. I wish I had more tent campers and pop-ups, he said. They don't complain much at all. They just enjoy camping and being in the outdoors. Camping numbers are up across the state. Here's a great article. Jellystone Park reports a change in visitor demographics. Now, they have roughly 70 Jellystone resorts, and in the blue here, many parks guests have downsized to the least costly campsites. Now, how can that be? Even this guy's perplexed. He says, I've been doing this for 40 years, and this is the first time I can remember visits were up, but revenues were down. How can that be? See in green here? With tent camping more popular than ever, he noted that almost 50% of those renting campsites were doing so without electric hookups. I mean, I love that. I really do. That just shows me that people love to go camping, and they don't really care what they're camping in at the end of the day, these 44 million. Families continue to go camping, whether the economy's bad, whether they have a good job, whether they're driving a small Prius or not. And remember, there's 44 million of them out there that are sleeping on the ground. So how do you, as an RV dealer, tap into these 44 million? Well, I want to tell you something. 10 years ago, I had the audacity to question the conventional wisdom regarding a particular segment of the market. And immediately, it was like I was from another planet. I mean, I know what it's like to be a loner in a crowded marketplace. It's not easy being the only one to push a new, innovative idea when everyone else is doing the same thing with the same vehicles. But in the end, I honestly believe that what I'm sharing with you today is going to give you a great chance to dramatically affect your dealership in a positive way for years to come. First of all, what did I question? Well, I questioned the fact that our industry was leaving behind a segment of the market that I think is critical to the long-term viability of our industry, and that is young families with children. Specifically, those who are driving cars, minivans, are one of today's popular crossover vehicles. See, when I was a kid, we went on a cross-country camping trip, and we used a small tent camper that we could pull with our family car. We didn't own a truck. We were a family, mom, dad, brothers, sisters. Now, why would we own a truck, especially one that couldn't hold all 6 of us? In 2002, the pop-up camper market was shrinking. While all other segments of the market were growing, conventional wisdom was that, well, as pop-ups become larger with more and more amenities, they're priced so close to traditional travel trailers, so for the money, why wouldn't a family choose a travel trailer over a pop-up? Well, I didn't believe that. You know, here's what I saw. I saw pop-ups were evolving into something that was far different from their original concept. They were getting larger every season with slide-out rooms and refrigerators and bathrooms, and which meant that not only did they weigh more, but they cost more as well. And by 2002, you basically needed a truck or an SUV to pull a traditional pop-up camper. Now, remembering my days as a youth, camping in that very basic trailer that we pulled with the family car, I said, hey, we are leaving these people behind. They don't care about bigger is better. They don't care about slide outs in their pop-ups. They don't care about fake fireplaces. You know, if some of these 44 million families that are out there camping on the ground saw the fake fireplaces that we put in our luxury fifth wheels and luxury motorhomes, they would laugh their ass off. They really would. Why? Because they have a real fire. They're not going to stare at some little piece of glass with a fake fire behind it. These are real people who love to go camping. And this is a market that I believe is not only still out there, but it's huge. So this is where we started as a company at Living Light. We saw that we could build something, and if it was light enough that you could pull it with your family car or minivan or crossover vehicle, that you'd be more apt to buy this than you would if you had to go out and trade in for a truck. And I thought, you know, if we can do it light enough, and if we can avoid the warranty problems that typical pop-ups have, we're going to have a winner. And this, you know, the looks we got when we first introduced the Quicksilver campers were pretty interesting. In fact, some dealers would say to me, "Why did you do that?" You know, and who's going to buy that, Scott? Nobody's going to buy that. It doesn't have a bathroom in it. Nobody's going to buy that, Scott. It doesn't have a this in it or a that in it. And I tried to explain to them, listen, I'm not trying to build a pop-up camper as you know it. I am building an automotive camper for young families with kids to pull so that they can take one step up off the ground and get off the ground and into something that has some comfort in it. And they can still pull it with whatever they're driving right now. Well, I think there was some stick-to-itiveness in us at the Living Light team, because the only people who really got it in the beginning were the Canadians and Australians. So probably 85% of our production in those early years were going to Canada, and they were going to Australia, where people just love to camp. But you know what? Automotive campers is what we hung our hat on. We said we're going to build something that's light enough to be towed by anything. And this picture here shows a 10-foot Quicksilver that opens up to 20 feet, and it's being pulled by a two-door Honda Civic, one of the smallest cars on the market that gets 40 miles to the gallon. This was a new terminology that we had to introduce and re-educate dealers on. These are not pop-ups, folks. These are automotive campers. So I instructed my salesmen to make sure they never use the word pop-up. I instructed my salesmen to make sure they always talked about automotive campers, and to be sure to clarify the difference between the two, because we knew exactly who we were going after, and that is a huge demographic of millions and millions of people who love to camp, but they're driving small cars. And guess what? Our demographics loved them. Look at these pictures. We nailed it. I mean, as much as they love communing with nature, these tent campers' number one complaint was, get me off the ground. I love being out here, but man, that ground can hurt after a while, and I just need something that we can still go to the campgrounds and go to the national parks, but just has basic comfort levels, and that's what we hit. So their camping experience was a lot more about hiking and swimming and s'mores than it was about, you know, the luxury of their camper. And we brought new blood into the marketplace. There's no doubt about it. Customers write me letters all the time. Here's a sample of one right here, and I'll just point you to the middle section there. He says, I pull it with a small car and I get about 20 miles per gallon on the freeways. Wherever I camp, it never fails to attract a lot of interest. People are amazed at so much comfort in such a small package. Thank you for such a well-made camper that is comfortable, easy to pull and use, so well designed and built. You know, this is something that happens every day at Living Light. It really makes it fun for me. It makes it fun for my team. It makes it fun for all of us when you're making people happy. Here's some more photos of automotive campers, and I guess when you look at these, I want to encourage you, don't look so much at the camper, but look at the vehicles that are towing them. Fast forward 10 years, and we have made thousands of Quicksilver campers, some of them light enough to be pulled by motorcycles. Here's one that is light enough to be pulled by a smart car, and I can tell you from the people that were driving that smart car, they were able to drive 70 miles an hour on the highway with that smart car pulling a camper. What began as a no-frills tent camper has actually exploded into a full line of automotive campers, all aimed at those who do not drive trucks and SUVs. The Quicksilver was the beginning, but then we moved forward with enclosed travel trailers as well. And here you see a Camp Light automotive camper being pulled by a small crossover vehicle. Now, what connotates an automotive camper? Well, first of all, they can't be built like a traditional RV. It can't have a heavy steel frame. It can't have heavy wooden flooring. It can't have heavy wooden walls and cabinets. In fact, our campers are built without a splinter of wood in them. They average about 60% of the weight of traditionally built RVs, and they come in multiple exterior colors. Other traditionally built RVs that try to compete with us in our weight class are only able to get close to us by using less wood or thinner wood. And I got to tell you, it's no contest. Here's a 19-foot travel trailer, double axles, being pulled by a compact crossover, and it weighs 2,750 pounds. I have to tell you, after 26 years in the industry, I am really having a lot of fun providing unique, ultra-lightweight campers to customers who had nothing that they could pull before. So just like the Quicksilver product, our Camp-Lite customers send me photos and emails all the time thanking us for building such a neat product that they can tow with their current car, such as this Mini Cooper owner. That's a great photo right there. He took that on the Dragon's Tail down in North Carolina, that famous road where a lot of motorcycle owners get their pictures taken. Well, he was so excited about his Mini Cooper and Camp-Lite, he took these pictures and sent them to me. The photo there on the right is actually an oil painting Photoshop rendition of a guy's camper that he has in his home, and again, just a fanatic. The one down there on the lower left, this customer sent me this photo with a note that said, "Hey, just wanted to show you how much fun it is to stop at gas stations only to use the restroom and not have to fill up with gas like all those big trucks we see pulling those big travel trailers." And what you're seeing here is the custom exterior colors. Instead of white, white, or white, we actually offer multiple metallic exterior colors: bronze, silver, charcoal, light blue. The photo there on the lower right is kind of interesting because this FJ Cruiser owner had written us and said, "Hey, can you custom paint our trailer to match our FJ Cruiser?" Which was easy for us to do, and it's something that we offer customers. Here's some more photos of camp lights being pulled by other smaller vehicles. Again, it's not so much about the campers here, but focus on the cars pulling them. That is the story here. Look at who we are pulling into our dealers' lots. There's a game I play with dealers that say, "Now, why would I carry this Camp Light travel trailer? I have all these other brands, and for the same money, I can sell so much bigger vehicle." And I have to remind them that it's not about the money that way. Because when I say to you, this is a $15,000 camper or a $20,000 camper, some dealers will say back to me, "Well, for that much money, I can get a 32-footer with 3 slide-outs. Why would I buy yours?" And I have to remind him, because my customer is driving a compact vehicle. My customer is driving a minivan. He's driving a crossover. Okay? It's a totally different market. There's a game that I like to play with dealers to help sign them up. And it's basically, I'll give you $1 for every vehicle that passes your dealership here in the next 10 minutes that can pull one of your towables that you have on the lot. And in exchange, I want you to give me $1 for every vehicle that passes your dealership in the next 10 minutes that can't pull one of the vehicles on your lot. Guess what? I win that game every time. Here's a couple of Jeeps pulling camp lights. Jeep was the #1 selling SUV last year. #1 brand loyalty. And good news is at Live and Light, we actually make the Jeep camper, which we now have available through our dealerships exclusively. We've pulled it back from the Chrysler dealerships, and we are now selling the Jeep campers through Live and Light dealerships. A couple more photos here. Here's a Honda Element pulling a 13-foot bunkhouse. Small Ford crossover vehicle pulling a 13-foot model. And quickly, I did want to share with you that we've done the same thing in the toy hauler market. We've basically designed an ultralight toy hauler that can be towed with SUVs and smaller trucks. This particular unit here is being pulled by a Jeep Rubicon, and it's a 6 by 15-foot toy hauler where he takes a couple of his ATVs in there, and it matches with silver and black. It matches his Rubicon. Here's a 8.5 by 22-foot toy hauler being pulled by a small Mercedes SUV. Here's a couple of our 8 wide by 22, and the small one on the bottom there is a 615 being pulled by some SUVs. And here I'm showing you our new Access toy hauler. This is a very unique looking toy hauler because we've put chrome look sidewalls on it to go with black and red front and rears. I got to tell you, it's one of the funnest, most exciting RVs that I've ever been a part of designing, and we just introduced it at RVDA, and dealers are loving it, and consumers are eating it up. So it's something to take a look at. Listen, I want to wrap this up, but I want to encourage you. We really are talking millions of potential customers as well as potential profits when we talk about these vehicles and the huge number of people who enjoy tent camping. Now, I hope that I've been able to share with you today some statistics and some articles that are really grabbing your attention, because we are in the midst of a change in our society, and the automakers are leading the way as we transition from larger trucks and SUVs to smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. And the bottom line of everything I've presented today is this: if your dealership relies solely on these tow vehicle owners to purchase the units you sell, then there's a huge opportunity for you to diversify and to attract a big demographic of buyer that's out there that most RV dealers simply do not have anything for them to tow. I'm telling you today that if you want to expand your business, to diversify, and to introduce your dealership to literally millions of potential new customers, then feature automotive campers on your sales lot and start bringing them in. And if you don't know of many companies that are building unique automotive trailers, guess what? I encourage you to stop by the Live and Light display at the upcoming Louisville show, where you're going to see some in person, including 2 new product offerings that we're launching at Louisville. We're in the north wing. Right when you enter the show from registration, if you go to the right, you're going to find our display right there. At Live and Light, we have experienced 48 straight months of continuous growth. We've been named to Inc. magazine's top 500 fastest growing privately owned companies 3 years in a row, with over 1,800% growth. Why? Because we're going after customers that no one else is going after, with products that no one else has. Thanks for your time. Be sure to see us at Louisville.